Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going hunting for Poliwrath in the Open Great League with Dedenne. Dedenne is an electric and fairy type Pokemon with the moveset of Thundershock, Discharge, and Play Rough. I have tried Dedenne in previous seasons, and honestly, I wasn't a massive fan of it. However, in my view, this meta shift is somewhat favorable to Dedenne, as there's a lot of teams running around with stuff like Shadow Dragonair, Skarmory, and of course the water types like Poliwrath, Lantern, and Azumarill. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's check out Dedenne in the Open Great League. Hopping to the first match, and we've got mirror leads, Shadow Dragonair versus Shadow Dragonair. I do run a high rank, so I'm very likely to lose charge attack priority here, but my opponent, interestingly enough, does not play for it. Instead, they're going to go for the one shield farm down play, so they're going to guarantee switch advantage at the expense of a shield. I'm going to send in Cresselia, as Cresselia, of course, is able to tank energy from the Dragonair no problem. I've seen a lot of cores that are Dragonair plus Skarmory, so I'm going to wait, and when I see that Skarmory, I'm going to send in Dedenne, and in the back, the opponent has Lantern. 2 Play Roughs should be enough to pick up a knockout here. I go for Play Rough number 1, and my opponent is going to let that through. They continue to farm. I am going to be committing a shield as they go for the Surf. My goal here is to farm up and again play to charge attack priority, but now I'm actually going to be going for a Discharge. Discharge not going to be enough to KO, but that's intentional, as this is going to set up a perfect farm down for Dedenne, as now I'm going to get a full Thundershock farm down, and this gives me the energy advantage that I need to be able to outpace the Skarmory. I'm now at the back-to-back discharges. I'm going for discharge number 1. Opponent will commit the shield, but I'm already at discharge number 2. At this point, my opponent is going to look to try and maximize energy, so I'm expecting they'll throw right before I get to the move, so I switch into the Cresselia, and I catch the Sky Attack, and with that, there is no longer a win con for my opponent, and they concede the match. Hopping into the next match, we see an amazing lead Shadow Dragonair into Lantern. This entire team beats Lantern, and honestly that's one of the things that I enjoyed about playing it. Opponent is going to save switch into Sableye, and I can just stay in here. I'm more than happy to stay in here and just play this out with the Shadow Dragonair, as I can guarantee switch advantage. I could of course just switch into Dedenne, but I decided I'd rather just stay in here and try and get shields from my opponent. I continue to farm, I'm firing off the Aqua Tail. I am actually traveling and visiting family for the holidays currently, so you're gonna notice I'm not on the best Wi-Fi ever compared to when I am typically battling at home. So you're gonna notice sometimes I do end up throwing on alignment and stuff like that a lot more commonly than I typically would. That is partly just due to the fact that I don't have the greatest connection when battling currently. I'm gonna let this through, even if it is a Moonblast, I can survive it. It is going to be the Moonblast. My opponent does get the attack drop. I'm expecting they'll go for the catch. So I actually queue up the switch when I make the move, and it's a simultaneous switch, Cresselia into Lantern, and this game is over. I can fire off the Grass Knot. That does massive, super effective damage, and the opponent concedes the match. We see a Nightmare lead in the next match, Shadow Dragonair into Cresselia. This is a core breaker. Honestly, once I saw it was Powder Snow, I probably should have just switched into Cresselia immediately, but instead, I decided to farm up some energy on Dragonair and go for a catch. The thing about Cresselia with Future Sight is it can actually beat Alolan Sandslash if it's running Powder Snow, not Shadow Claw, and a lot of 8-Slashes as of late have been running the Powder Snow. I'm farming up. I'm going to wait a turn there to make sure my opponent doesn't catch the Future Sight, and I fire off the Future Sight. That does massive damage to the Alolan Sandslash. Sandslash is going to play to charge attack priority. Very nice counting here by my opponent, and I am just going to let the Ice Punch go. I can send in the Dragonair, but unfortunately my opponent would make it to an Ice Punch, so I am forced to fire off some energy here. That is definitely not ideal. My opponent ends up shielding, and I decide, you know what? I'm putting my faith in Dedenne. I'm letting this go. In comes Dedenne. Opponent switches into a Sableye. Wait. This might be possible. If this is what they're switching in, maybe Dedenne up a shield can sweep. I full send the player off, my opponent commits the shield, and that makes me wish that I had gone for a bait, as now they're going to be able to make it to a foul play. And Dedenne, its typing is very cool, but as you're going to see, it is very, very glassy. So now I have a choice. Do I fire a move right away, or do I try and look to overfarm for energy? I decide to play for energy. In case there's something like a Talonflame in the back, maybe I can just get rid of it with a Discharge. What do they have in the back? It is a Azumarill, and I'm gonna run out of HP here. Oh, this is so unfortunate. I go for the Discharge. That does quite a lot of damage. Dedenne able to make the last second Discharge. This is gonna be close, but I don't think it's gonna be enough to KO. XL Azumarill, just too bulky, and we fall just short after that terrible lead. Moving into the next match, and our target has been acquired, leading Shadow Dragonair into Shadow Poliwrath. The zeros here are pretty nice for the Dragonair, as Dragonair of course is able to outpace the Poliwrath and make the Body Slam before they make the Icy Wind. Shadow Body Slam is very threatening, so a lot of opponents like to shield, and I'm just going to take my shield advantage. My team in the back is so strong to Poliwrath, they undertap the Icy Wind, so they're 6 off their Icy Wind, number 2, so I can overfarm by 1 and play to charge attack priority where Dedenne is easily going to get to go first. The discharge is shielded, and this tells me my opponent is probably very weak to Dedenne in the back if they're shielding a low health Poliwrath to get a debuff. I'm going to again play to charge attack priority here, going for the discharge. Opponent makes a catch onto a Dragonite, and they clearly have zero response to the electric mouse. I continue to farm up with Dedenne, going for another discharge. This is debuffed, but it's still going to do so much damage because Shadow Dragonite is so frail in the Great League. They send in the Poliwrath, looking to go for the Icy Wind, but I get the catch onto Cresselia. And now, my guess is, it's going to be a third thing weak to the mouse in the back, and it's Skarmory. So unfortunately, my Cresselia here is debuffed and completely walled, but I still have Dedenne and a shield, so this game is won despite the absolutely atrocious alignment that I find myself in. Opponent going for a charge move, and that's completely fine. They go for the Sky Attack. Cresselia shakes it off like it's nothing. Cresselia is an absolute bulky beast. Future Sight is going to connect. I continue to farm up here. Clock is up. I'm able to send into Dedenne, shield up, and then I'll get to go for the discharge. They go for the Sky Attack. Dedenne at the discharge. Discharge easily going to be KOing the Skarmory from this health range, and I'm able to take the game. We see a pretty nice lead in the next match, Shadow Dragonair into Skeledirge. While this is a good lead, I do have to be very careful when going up against Skeledirge with this team, as if Skeledirge ever has the opportunity to farm something down in a mid game and exit with a lot of energy from Skeledirge is incredibly threatening to this team. My opponent farms up to 80 energy, they're going for Disarming Voice. They're 1 off their next move, but thankfully I am barely able to outpace and make it to Aqua Tail number 2. If they want their second move, they're going to have to give me their second shield, and they decide to let it go. In comes Shadow Poliwrath. I can save switch into the Cresselia, and Cresselia able to tank charge moves for days from this Pokemon, and I'm hoping they're going to switch out so I can align it onto Dedenne, and they do. In comes Superior, and at this point this game is just won. I get to fire off the Future Sight. That does massive damage. I'm expecting my opponent will throw just before I get to Future Sight number 2, so I actually decided to go for a Grass Knot here. Grass Knot doesn't do a lot of damage, but it will make a potential farm down by the Dragonair quite a bit easier. Opponent is going to need a Frenzy Plant to knock out here, and they full send it. I send in the Dragonair. My opponent is going to throw energy, and I decide, you know what? I'm actually going to go for a very aggressive Thundershock down play with the Dedenne. I'm shielding up, as of course Frenzy Plant would absolutely destroy Dedenne. It's very, very glassy. In comes the Shadow Poliwrath. I'm able to double up on discharges, and with this game is over. Discharge number 1 is going to connect, getting the knockout. In comes Superior. Superior runs out of HP, and we take that win. We see a Nightmare lead in the next match, Shadow Dragonair into Whimsicott. Whimsicott is a pretty big core breaker for this team. I'm going to save switch into the Cresselia and basically just hope that my opponent doesn't have an amazing response to the Cresselia save switch and decides to stay in. And it looks like that's exactly what they're doing. They go for the Moonblast, but they stay in, and I'm able to make the Future Sight. Even though Cresselia does not have a high attack stat, Future Sight does massive damage onto that Whimsicott. I do lose charge attack priority here, but I'm perfectly fine with going down a shield if it means I can get rid of the Whimsicott. That Whimsicott is so bad for both the Dragonair and the Dedenne. The Grass Knot connects, I get 1 extra Psycho Cut, my opponent now sends in Dugong, so they clearly did not have a good response to the Cresselia safe switch. The nice thing is, I'm outside of Icy Wind range. My opponent is going to have to go for the harder hitting Drill Run if they want to potentially pick up a knockout. They go for the Icy Wind. Icy Wind, that's not going to cut it. I make it to another Grass Knot. This is debuffed, so they will be able to survive it, but not well. That's able to connect. I send in the Dragonair. In the back, opponent has Poliwrath, and things are looking pretty good here. I'm going to be firing off this Body Slam. Body Slam is going to be shielded up. My opponent saved 2 shields up until now, and I decide I'm actually going to be using my shield here. The reason being is that even after I'm debuffed once, my opponent cannot farm down here. They're going to be forced to throw energy, and once they throw energy, then I can send in Dedenne in the zeros and very comfortably take the win. The opponent tries for the farm down. That is not going to work out. I send in Dedenne, and the opponent concedes the match. Moving into the next match, leading Shadow Dragonair into Lantern, a dominant lead. And as I mentioned, this entire team beats Lantern. So anytime you see Lantern, it's incredibly nice. I'm going to be firing off this Body Slam. Body Slam is going to connect. Lantern farming up one past the Thunderbolt, and whether they go for a Surf or a Thunderbolt, I can tank it. They go for the Thunderbolt. I continue to farm with the Dragonair. Dragonair cannot quite get the farm down. Opponent is going to switch out at the last second into Cresselia. My goal now is to get as much chip damage onto this Cresselia as possible with a Body Slam, and then I can bring in my own Cresselia. We've seen this strategy a bit in regional championships, specifically with Lickitung save switches, where if you can get a nice amount of chip damage, so that way there's basically an irrecoverable health disparity between the two Pokemon, then you can switch in the mirror and always keep switch. So in this case, I'm able to get some very nice Dragon Breaths, land a Body Slam, and now in the matchup Cresselia versus Cresselia, I'm in a very nice spot. And it turns out that I win Charge Attack priority in this mirror as well, which is quite nice. Grass Knot going to get them deep into the red, but unfortunately not going to be enough to pick up a knockout. They fire off the Grass Knot. The question is, can I potentially get a farm down? Opponent not going to let that happen. They send in Gligar. Gligar does not want to get hit with a Future Sight, so they will go for the Aerial Ace. A Gligar in the back is not amazing news for Dedenne. The thing is, they're a Shadow, so Play Rough from Dedenne will do quite a lot of damage. My opponent has farmed up quite a lot of energy. I decide to go for a bait. This is a risky bait, but it pays off. That's massive. My opponent, are they going for the dig? Are they baiting with the Aerial Ace? I call the bait. It's the Aerial Ace bait, and now I should be in a potentially good spot here. I'm going to be shielding up. Opponent probably just going straight for the Aerial Ace now. I continue to farm, and I'm going for the Play Rough. Decision time for the opponent. Only one shield remaining. They are going to shield. They send in Cresselia. I'm going to farm up a ton of energy. Switch into the Dragonair. I have energy on the Dragonair and the Dedenne. And the opponent resigns the match. Moving into the next match, leading Shadow Dragonair into Charjabug. Even though Charjabug does win the zeros for Shadow Dragonair, I typically prefer to be the Dragonair. As long as I do have a shield, I'm going to be able to dictate this matchup. I'm going to no-shield the X-Scissor, I'm going to continue to farm, opponent save switches into Shadow Poliwrath, and I'm going to immediately respond with the Cresselia. Cresselia is able to tank Shadow Scald. Shadow Scald hits hard on basically everything, but I am going to be able to withstand that damage, overfarm, and then go for the knockout with the Grass Knot. I believe even with the debuff, it should be enough to KO. Oh, it barely is not. We see the Poliwrath able to hang on with 1 HP and make it to a last-second Icy Wind. In comes the Charjabug. This is now a debuffed Future Sight, but Future Sight is still going to do some okay damage. They're going to get a farm down, and now I'm going to send in Dedenne. In the back, it's Altaria, and Dedenne is in a prime position to close out the game. I'm going to be firing off this Play Rough. Play Rough is going to be shielded up by my opponent. I continue to farm. Opponent firing off energy here. I decide to respect it with a shield. It is just going to be the Sky Attack, but in this moment, I do want to try and preserve HP on Dedenne. To me, it feels far too risky to go for a bait since I do win 2s without baiting, so I am going to go for another Play Rough, and I do get another shield. I'm going to be shielding up the Dedenne. Opponent is going to go for another Sky Attack. I'm farming up to the Play Rough, and this Play Rough is going to get to land. Play Rough is going to connect. I go for a snipe with Dragon Breath, but the opponent is going to send in the Charjabug. It's a simultaneous switch. That's really not good. I send in Dedenne. I'm able to outpace and make it to the discharge. The question is, can Altaria make it to a move? Thundershocks do not hit very hard. Dedenne barely gets the farm down, and we win a game that was way closer than it ever should have been. Hopping into the final match, leading Shadow Dragonair into Talonflame. Opponent save switches into Lickitung. I don't have an amazing response to a Lickitung save switch in the back, so I am just going to stay in here with the Dragonair. Opponent is going to commit a shield, and I'm more than happy to play this out with the Dragonair. They're going to be firing off a Body Slam. I decide to shield back. If they no-shield my next Body Slam, then I should just be able to shield and fully farm them all the way down and win Switch Advantage. And Switch Advantage is very, very helpful for this team, although to be fair, Talonflame, considering that I have Future Sight on the Cresselia, is not going to have a good time against either one of my back Pokemon. Dragonair is barely able to get that farm down in the back. It is going to be superior, and I'm very happy that I have Switch Advantage here, as I'm going to eventually be able to put that superior onto the Cresselia, and oh my goodness, was that Charge Attack priority? Hold on a second. I go for the Body Slam. It connects, and it is Charge Attack priority. Extremely unfortunate for my opponent, as now I can send in Dedenne. Opponent sends in Talonflame. I get to fire off the discharge. Opponent is now 1 Incinerate off, making it to a Flame Charge. So I throw 2. They're going to go for the Flame Charge. Flame Charge will not be enough to KO here. I will want to defer the Incinerate, so I'm going to throw a Thundershock, defer the Incinerate damage onto the Cresselia, and at this point, they just can't throw a move at +1 to KO me from here. They go for the Fly, but Fly, not going to be enough to knock out, and here's another situation where having Future Sight can be very, very helpful. Future Sight is going to pick up the knockout. In comes Serperior. Serperior does get farmed down, and we take the win. All in all, I had a lot of fun getting to run Dedenne. I do feel like the team was definitely helped by the fact that Shadow Dragonair plus Cresselia feels to be a really strong core at the current moment, and it could honestly pair well with a lot of good third Pokemon that just do well into flyers. So in my case, Dedenne could also run something like a Lantern, or if you're trying to get a bit toxic, maybe even a Bastiodon as the third. Overall, I believe I did go slightly positive with the team at Leaderboard Elo, so I'm pretty happy with the results overall, considering that previously in other seasons when I had tried Dedenne, it did not go well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.